Today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to properly use a ruler when you are measuring things for your artwork. And we're going to be needing that for our first project this year. So the first thing that I want to draw your attention to is the first slide, which says first things first. We will be using a ruler several times this year, whether it's to measure margins or grids or any sort of measurement that we might need in our work. And in my class, you will always use the inches side of the ruler, which is the bigger measurements, the bigger numbers. Those are the inches, the inch measurements. Whenever you are starting your measurement on your piece of paper, you should always start from the 0 mark. Now, on your ruler, you might not see a 0 mark. I went in with a Sharpie and actually drew on my ruler and added a 0. That is totally up to you if you want to do that. It helps me to remember where to start my measurements from. If you look a little bit more closely, you can see that there's a tiny little space between the 0 inch mark and the edge of the ruler. Always make sure that you're measuring from that 0 inch mark, because even that tiny little section between that and the edge of the ruler can make a huge difference in your work. All right, so step 2. What we are going to do is we are going to measure margins in our artwork. What I want you to do is line your ruler up at the bottom of your paper. And again, you're starting at the 0 mark on the edge of your paper. You're going to find the 1/2 inch mark, which is halfway between 0 and 1, and make a measurement. And then you're going to find the halfway mark between 6 and 7, which is 6.5 inches, okay? So just make 2 little dots there. And then you're going to slide your ruler all the way to the top of your paper. Don't rotate it, just slide it directly up, and you'll make the same measurements again at 1/2 of an inch and 6.5 inches, okay? Please keep in mind that I drew these measurements in Sharpie so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's hard to see my pencil markings, so I wanted to make sure that you could visibly see this. When you are ready and you have made your measurements at the bottom and top of your paper, you're going to use your ruler to connect those lines. Try to make your line as straight as possible. That's going to make your artwork look really nice and neat. Do that on the left and right-hand side of your page. Step 3, you're going to actually turn your ruler on its side. So this time, instead of having it laying horizontally, you're going to have it going straight up and down vertically. This is where you're going to make measurements at the 1 inch mark and the 11 inch mark, okay? What that's going to allow you to do is create a margin or a border all the way around your artwork. So if you look at step 3A, what I've done is I've lined my ruler up on the right side of my page. On step 3B, I slid it all the way over. I didn't turn it. I slid it over, and I made the same exact measurements at 1 inch and at the 11 inch mark. When you're done, you're going to connect those lines as well. So now what you've done is you've made a perfect border for your phone project. This is what your paper should look like at the end of step 3. When you go to step 4, what you're going to do is line your ruler up, except instead of having the 0 mark at the edge of your paper, I want you to have it at the edge of your border or your margin. At that point, you're going to make measurements every 2 inches. So 2 inches and 4 inches. That's it. You don't need to make one at 6. If you look at step 4B, what I did was I slid my ruler down again, and I made a measurement at 2 and 4. Again, starting my measurement from the margin or border, not from the edge of the paper. After I've made those measurements, I'm going to connect those 2 lines. So now I've created 3 columns in my artwork, and that's going to be the start of my grid for my phone. So this is what your paper should look like at the end of step 4. Step 5. What you're going to do next is put your ruler on its side one more time, and you are going to have it facing vertically. So now you're going to make measurements every 2 inches on the side of your paper. Again, starting your measurements from the inside border, so from the lines going around the edge of the page. So you're going to make measurements at 2, 4, 6, and 8 inches on the left side of your paper. Then you're going to slide your ruler to the right for step 5B. You're then going to make your 2, 4, 6, and 8 measurements, starting from the border, starting from the margin. And at that point, you're going to be ready to connect your lines. And what you should end up with at the end of step 5 is a perfect grid, okay? All right, so step 6. At the top of your page, you're going to have 3 little boxes up here. You're going to want to actually erase those top 3 blocks because that's where your photo is going to go, your picture that you draw of yourself, and a little bit of information about you. So for step 6A, just erase your top section. You're not going to need those lines that are going through it. For step 6B, I've added some features that are going to make my project look more like a phone. So I used a bottle cap. I used a Gatorade cap to draw the circle. If you have something lying around the house that's circular, you can use that to trace. I also added a couple of little dots for my earpiece, and then down at the bottom, a little piece for my microphone. So those are some additions that you can make to your project. All right, so now it looks like I've made a huge leap in my steps, and that's because I have. I went through and I added all of my different likes and dislikes and interests to my personal cell phone. You can see that I have outlined everything in a thin black marker. You can use whatever you have lying around at home, but please keep in mind that you should be outlining everything after you have drawn it in pencil. You always want to start with your pencil drawing first. Once you feel comfortable enough with the pencil drawing, that's when you can go in and you can start to add colors. You can start to make it really look beautiful with all of the vibrant, bright colors and making it look as neat and nice as possible.